after all the filming was done, I could hardly function for a couple of days and actually weeks. It was horrible. And I don't know that Kristyn did all that and said all of that, believing it at all. I think that a lot of it was a setup by the show because they kept trying to do that to me. They kept trying, the producer kept trying to get me riled up and tell me things that Kristyn said that I don't believe she said and that the family's saying. And they think you're this and they think you're that and they hate you. And I'm going, oh, well, really? I thought the whole way through, I'm going to be me. I'm going to speak my truth. And, and so if they put anything I say out there, it's going to be what I say, and that's going to be really me, like you said. However, when they put the show out, oh my gosh, I was blown away by the way they made it look.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, and you are in for a treat today because this morning I sat down with Miss Kristyn Decker, who is the aunt and cousin of Christine Brown. She was featured on an episode of Sister Wives, and she has been a very outspoken individual for people leaving the world of plural marriage. Kristyn had insight that I think only someone from this world can provide, along with her own experience on the show, and so many nuggets about what it's like to leave a plural family, the dynamics that happen between husbands and wives and wives and wives and kids. It's an eye-opening, incredible interview that I think you're going to enjoy. This interview is audio only, so watch it in the background. Pop your popcorn, sit back. It's going to be a long one, and I really do hope you enjoy hearing from Kristyn. Before we do jump into the interview, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed, turn the notifications on by clicking on the bell, and make sure to leave some comments along the way if you have something to say. Let's go. Okay, welcome, Kristyn.
Hey, Katie.
Hi. So this is your second time on the channel, so we're so glad to have you back. And this time, there's been a lot of upheaval with everything that's happening on the Sister Wives, and you are a former member of the group that they came from. And so we were going to talk, and you're the aunt of Christine and cousin of Christine,
Right. Yeah.
because of the bush of polygamy trees.
Yeah. Her
So
dad's my first cousin by blood.
yes,
And her mom married my dad. So that makes her my niece. Her mom, so we're not, her mom and I, we're not blood related, but so blood wise cousins and niece through marriage.
first cousin once removed, right? Because you and Rex are first cousins.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she, what I always think is interesting is Rulon was her actual biological grandfather.
Yes.
And he was the leader until his death. And then your dad took over, who is her great uncle and stepfather and step grandfather.
Yeah, her uncle and a step grandparent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you were in this group for 50 years until you actually left, and you left your husband after how many years of marriage?
We would have been married 33 years, but we were separated for a while. And then I filed for the divorce. I actually left the belief system long before I left him, which is common. It's kind of what Kristyn did. She was leaving, and questioning everything, and finally said, I'm out of here.
So what do you think the biggest challenges are because what they've seen on the show, and I know you don't watch every episode and you haven't watched a lot of it, but one of the biggest challenges I think for viewers is that they see wives that are uh, being mistreated very badly by their husband and also by other wives. And there's a very unhealthy dynamic. And yet, despite all of that mistreatment, they explain away the mistreatment or they dismiss it or they discount it. What are the beliefs or what are the doctrines of the faith that maybe hold a woman in that position where they're able to explain away a lot of this and not leave?
I think it's more from my experiences and those around me and growing up and watching the show when I have, and from friends and a ton of relatives who've left and who are still in. I think my guess would be on that, because I'm mostly coming from my own experiences, is that we would taught from the time we're young, and or the doctrine and or the belief systems, no matter which way you look at it, that we should be supportive. We've talked about this before. You have a lot of times on Keep Sweet, and just pray and obey. I think a lot of that's a habit to protect them. Also, and more than anything, I think it comes from protecting our children from their dad's reputation. We want to not talk too bad about them, and well, they did this because, and yeah, well, I feel bad. I think that more than anything, the reason that we would cover up and justify those things is a little bit of our own embarrassment for doing that, for putting up with that, making excuses until later on we would realize how crazy that is, that
Mhm.
we would stay and that we would put our kids through that, and that we would do the suffering and enduring forever,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
think after a while, the girls will stop making excuses and just say it was not okay. And he was being a
So the doctrine is to protect the husband, support the husband, and he's the priest of the priesthood of the home.
right.
So can
Yeah.
you explain what that means? Because they speak a lot about what the priesthood is, but what does a priesthood mean in terms of like the amount of control that a husband has in a family?
So, one thing I'd like to be really clear on is that when I speak, or when anyone really makes comments about, in general, that everyone's family could be different, everyone's ideas are different, everybody's doctrine. I mean, it's just, you can't put everybody in the same one, in the
Mhm. Yep.
same box and say it's the same. But overall, the doctrine or the belief systems that we were raised with is that the man is the head of the household. He's supposed to be following his priesthood head, which would be the prophet or the leader. And or if there's not that, then it would be his father, the senior person. The women are supposed to follow and obey their husband, and the children are supposed to follow and obey the women. And then it goes on up to God. So the prophet gets revelation from God. God, then he gives it on down through that order. Dad, wife, kids, etc.
Okay.
And
So what would
and
happen?
oh, sorry, Katie, the priesthood is everything. The priesthood has all the gifts, the blessings, the power. The women don't. They're supposed to just follow what the priesthood says.
Okay. So when Kody will say, like, one thing Kody likes to say is that his wives need to be loyal to him, and he needs them to let him be the head of the household.
Because he supposedly claims, he still thinks he has the priesthood and that he's the head of the house, and they need to obey and do whatever he wants them to do. And again, I think that he gets some of that from his peers who he hangs out with, who are still very chauvinist, patriarchal people. Don't let those women do this. Don't let them talk to you like that. How dare they? And they feed into each other like that really big time.
Yeah, that was another thing I was wondering is if a man is, say, out of the faith or not within the church anymore, like the Browns are, who's the priesthood then?
Yeah, a lot of fundamentalists don't claim a leader anymore or a group. A lot of them are very independent, and yet they still hold to those priesthood rules, and the man is still the head of the household, and their direction comes from either somebody they put in authority and or God. I still think that Kody's holding, and I'm just guessing at this, but I think he holds to the AUB still as his priesthood head, even though they pulled away a lot. And I'm just guessing on that. The reason I say that too is because Robin said that that Kristyn hasn't had a priesthood release, and so why would you say that if they didn't still hold some, uh, what's the word I want to say, loyalty to that, to the
Yeah.
group, to the
Yeah.
leader there. Yeah.
I know that his daughter Gwendolyn had mentioned that she does believe that Robin and Kody still believe in this. People don't believe that. They think that he wants to just be a monogamous, but she feels like they're still believers. I think Kristyn made a mention of it. One of them said that, like, if, maybe, yeah, it was Kristyn, on whether or not Kody and Robin might go back to that faith now that people are leaving.
From the clips that I've watched and from you and others, is that I get the feeling that they're still believers. I think that he's getting frustrated with the women being independent and doing their own things. And before, they were independent women and doing their own things, but they were doing what I said before, where they would just make Kody justify his behaviors. And he's still our husband. He's still the priesthood leader. He's still this, he's still that. And as they're pulling away and finding their own selves and their, own actualization, he doesn't like that part. And that you've said, he always said, oh, they can leave, they can do this, they can do
Yeah.
that. But no, this is a whole different thing, when it's actually happening. And it really, really irks me to no end that he can treat them so horribly and give Kristyn a million reasons to leave, and then treat her like she's evil and bad and horrible and caused all this problem, and act like he's the victim in all of it.
Yes.
I just, it,
So
yeah.
so some of these traits obviously are Kody, but how much is that fueled by the faith of a man playing the victim, or saying a woman can leave and then being angry when they do?
What I want to say is, I think that it goes both ways. I think that Kody's really feeling like a failure and in his religion. He couldn't keep the women happy. He's just been miserably done that to them too, with all their challenges and raising all those kids and not being able to be there. So I think he feels like a failure. And now it's obvious, it's in front of everybody's face. He wanted to get on the show to make it look so wonderful and so awesome and how great polygamy is. And so I think it goes both ways. I think he's feeling angry that he's showing up as a failure, that he didn't make this work as a leader, as a priesthood, as
Yeah.
the,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he can blame, Kody's ego is going to blame everybody, and it's all their fault. And I don't know if that explained anything at all. I'm just thinking it really goes with the man and the ego, as well as what he has to deal with as the priesthood and his belief system.
Is part of the way that he treats people and, like, blames people another possibility that he also is doing this to set an example and keep people within the fold?
Maybe because when people leave, we're all thrown under the bus big time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the common thing that happens. And it was definitely my fault. Family, people, friends, people wrote me off, siblings, lies were told, big time lies, made up stories, like's happening with Kristyn, that
Yeah. Yeah.
she's responsible for supposedly turning, what was it, Janelle against, I don't know what it was the other day that was
Oh,
up.
no, the new lie is that she interfered in Kody reconciling with Mary, which makes zero sense. Because if
Oh,
Kody,
yeah.
because Kristyn is gone, and if Kody wants to reconcile, he can. Nobody's stopping him.
Yeah. Those are the things I'm saying, that there's no end to the lies and throwing someone under the bus when they leave. And that came from my husband supported, well, passively not aggressively, passively supported other people in doing that to a certain degree. And so did family and friends and some of my kids for a while. It's just horrible.
Yeah. And you, who had been sort of an outspoken person in the world of anti-polygamy, and I hate even saying it in that context because it makes it seems like you're against people in polygamy. But it's rather the institution of it and the abuses that happen within it. Even when you were on the show several years ago, and there was like this panel, I was rewatching the episode and I noticed the way that they were talking about you was just so, it was the exact opposite of my experience with you for over 3 years of knowing you. So the way that they were like, oh, she hates us and she's evil and she's and Kristyn was acting like she was scared of you.
The whole thing just gives me a gut ache right now, even thinking about it. I and I so appreciate you bringing that up because I've been called an anti-polygamist, which means I'm anti these people. They're almost everybody I know, relatives, family, friends, people that I love dearly and want them to be happy and have joy in their lives. And and being on that show, oh my gosh, it was the first time I ever realized I had any PTSD at all. After all the filming was done, I could hardly function for a couple of days and actually weeks. They it was horrible. And I don't know that Kristyn did all that and said all of that believing it at all. I think that a lot of it was a setup by the show because they kept trying to do that to me. They kept trying, the producer kept trying to get me riled up and tell me things that Kristyn said that I don't believe she said and that the family's saying. And they think you're this and they think you're that. And they hate you. And I'm going, oh, well, really? I thought the whole way through, I'm going to be me. I'm going to speak my truth. And so if they put anything I say out there, it's going to be what I say, and that's going to be really me, like you said. However, when they put the show out, oh my gosh, I was blown away by the way they made it look, like you just
Yeah.
said, that
Yeah.
I was evil, that I was
Yeah.
hateful,
Yeah.
that I was taunting Kristyn at the bathroom and staying there so she wouldn't come out. That bathroom scene was a joke. They do the couch sessions that they do where you see them all sitting on the couch and they
Yeah.
called it that. A lot of those are done way after the fact, way
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
filming's been done. And then they're supposed to act like it's happening right now. And that's what they wanted us to do, the four of us that were on the panel. And they asked me about the bathroom scene. And I said, now here they've got the cameras going. And I said, I knew that as soon as you guys followed me down the hall, my privacy to go to the bathroom, you followed me and Colleen down the hall, and we had to wait in line, wait by the doors, that something was up. I thought, why would these people be following us with cameras down the hall to the bathroom? And so I'm waiting. We're all waiting to get in. I don't know how much detail you want, but basically, in a nutshell, they made it. Kristyn finally, I didn't even know she was in the bathroom. I had no idea who was in there. Finally, I see the other girls come down, Janelle and Robin and Mary, down there like as if they're rescuing her. And they tap on the door and they go in and they shut the door. And I'm going, oh my gosh, Kristyn must really be in trouble. She must be, having personal issues and problems. And because now I know it's Kristyn, right?
Yeah.
Because and then they come out with her all huddled up like they got to protect her from me.
Yeah.
And then that's how they portrayed that. And she's like acting like she's scared of me and oh my gosh, and she's so hateful. And if she wants to tell us why she hates us all, and I'm going, where in the world does that come from? But all the whole time we were filming, I felt like producers were trying to cause us to fight or cause a riff or cause some drama and
Yeah.
pit us all against each other.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I don't.
I saw this to speak to Colleen. I actually saw her reaction to this. It was on her YouTube channel that she posted like after it happened. It's like 8 or 9 years old. And she said the exact same thing. I didn't know who was behind the door. Like, I had no clue. I had to use the restroom. Like,
Really?
I didn't know anything. And she actually was really mad at Kristyn. Um, and she's more of a tell it like it is kind of woman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she doesn't hold back. And she was angry at the things that were being said about you. Obviously, she holds you in a high regard. You've done a lot for people within that have left the community. And most people that know you know that you're a very gentle hearted woman. So she was just like very angry about the way that she felt you were being treated by other people. So
They did a little thing on the phone where Robin picks up the phone and it beeps, and then she pretends she's reading something, and maybe it was there, but she said, "Oh my gosh, they said that Kody's a misogynist blankety blank," and I can't remember what it was, so that it looked like we were the ones that sent something to them like that. There was so many false representations through that whole thing that it was really sad and pathetic. And also, I believe with all my heart that before the panel, we were all promised an equal amount of time to speak, and the Browns got to go first. Of course, it's their show, and they took overtime. They went overtime, of course. And then Colleen talked, and so did um,
Willie.
Willie. Thank you. And then Kristyn, I believe, or me. And oh, when it got to be my turn, the producer said, "Oh, well, we only have 5 minutes left, so you have to cut it short." And I think maybe it was 10 minutes. And so I'm thinking the whole time that was so completely unfair. And then when I was trying to talk, they kept interrupting. "You don't get to say that. You don't." And Robin, this is the part they cut out that I wish they'd have left in. And of course, they aren't going to. One thing I did say during that program was that it's not a choice. Polygamy, for those of us who are born and raised in it, it's indoctrination, and you do it or else. And that's our belief, and that's what we grew up with. So therefore, it's not a real, genuine choice. And I said that during my talk, and so she yells, "It is too my choice. I wouldn't do this if I didn't believe it." And I said, I got the microphone back and I said, "Exactly. That's what I just said. You
And then
wouldn't do it
she
if
got
you didn't
mad
believe
and
it."
she said to you, "Don't put words in my mouth, honey."
That's what, and then they leave that part in. They left out all the rest that had been said, and then leave that part with her getting mad of "Don't put words in my mouth." Yep. When she had just said that, I wouldn't do it if I
Oh
didn't,
my
you know.
goodness. I think she and Kody have the same level of a
Oh,
perse- a
majorly. Yeah.
persecution complex. I see it most in her of all of them. And I think that feeds into Kody. I think they feed into each other a lot.
There's
So
big payoffs to have that persecution complex. Yeah. And so
so they walk into this, and the whole situation is just really, it's horrible if you think about it, because I think viewers obviously are brought to this family and they know they're not super okay, so they're not super hiding the fact that they want to decriminalize polygamy. That's their goal. That's what they're working on. That's how they got attention within to get this show, because of Kristyn's work with Principal Voices and all of that with Ann Wilder, and she was doing, and Kristyn was involved with the Census Bureau with the state of Utah and these different breakoff groups to help with resources. So she was getting attention, but viewers didn't really understand that. It was never really totally talked about as the
no, it wouldn't be either. They wanted that to be quiet and covered up what all the involvement was and what the real truth was about anything. And they just really, really worked hard. They had been, Ann Wild and that group of people had been working for years and years to speak to the state of Utah legislators and everybody they could, providers to officers to authorities, anywhere and everywhere, to get polygamy decriminalized, to talk about how wonderful it was. And it's just a few bad people who make it look bad. And we're all like, they showed up at the Capitol to say, we're families, we're not felons, and all the putting on the great, big, huge production about how wonderful polygamy is.
Yeah.
And so therefore, this is our religious freedom, and don't tell us that we
What?
can't do it.
Right. I've through this work and through you and other people, like I've had other people that you've worked with along the way, sort of send me the backstory, which I recently found and directed to the fact that the producer has his own production page and he admits so much as what they're doing. And this isn't anything that TLC has said,
Mhm.
but it says I'll just read you what they wrote. The first step was to approach the fundamentalist Mormon community, the religious group in the United States most well known for the practice of polygamy. Tim started by contacting Ann Wild at Principal Voices, an informal, I laughed when I read this, non-denominational fundamentalist Mormon media relations organization. And meeting Ann at her home, it wasn't biased at all.
Not at all.
Tim outlined his vision of a reality series focused solely on the everyday struggles of a typical polygamist family. The idea of the series was not to create a debate on whether polygamy was right or wrong, but rather to simply document the polygamous family and let viewers decide for themselves what they thought of it. Tim explained, and this is how he got her to do this, that there would be no experts who would comment on the show, nor would there be any opposing viewpoints explored.
Yeah.
It would be.
There was, yeah. Go ahead.
And so I'm assuming this is told to her so that they'll participate.
Oh, absolutely. And Wild, when that's a whole nother story. I really wish I could write a book about everyone that's involved and was involved, and the big people, big pictures in there, but I know they would sue me if I ever even tried to write true stories. Like, so you're seeing the reality, the real things come out. And will the real persons please stand up?
Yes.
That's what's happening. And I've said that for years and years and years about this show, about it being glamorizing, about it not being real, not being true, the feelings and the heartache and the sadness. And if the cameras would run, all day long, you would see a whole different picture,
right,
especially in the privacy of their sadness and their heartache and those kinds of things. But Tim, the producer, I'm trying to think what it was I was going to tell you, but there were so many things that, as you were speaking, that just brought up gut aches to me still during all that production that was crazy and not real. I would say something and he would, about the, say for an example, the sexual abuse that was going on. And he would say, has anybody been charged with that? And I say, no. Well, then we aren't going to put that on the show. Has anybody been done? Did this happen? Did this really happen? Is that documented? Well, no, but that was my experience. No, well, then we're not going to put that on the show. And he interviewed, I think he wanted me to just be mean and terrible. And he didn't get what he wanted from me. And they weren't getting what they wanted from me. And at least that was my feeling, I should say.
Yeah.
And they just kept setting us up. Kristyn, why don't you go over and invite Christine to come over and have food, a meal with us after the show or tomorrow or whenever. So Tim asks me to do that. And I'm going, oh my gosh, okay. So I do that. And the cameras are following us over there. And I asked Christine if she wants to go. And she says, no, we have other plans. And I'm sure that, that was planned. The cameras, and they knew everything that was going to happen all the way through the show. Oh, big time. They do this constantly. Kristyn, what else do you think we could film? What else will keep our ratings up? Who else would come on the show? What do you think we can do next time? When Mary announced her divorce from Kody, I went, oh yeah, here it goes, another ploy to get people to watch. It just got more and more and more that way again and again. And I'm just like, what else are they going to do now to keep people watching this craziness? And
I
so,
mean, the way that you describe it and going to what the part of it was, I know you were you said, I'm all over the place, but it made sense
oh,
to me because their goal was to not provide any opposing views. So
that
you guys were there in a way to not provide an opposing view, but rather to allow them to justify their experience.
you were right on. That's exactly what it was. I was going to say too, is they presented. So when Tim called and asked me if I would do this, I said, no, there's no way I want to do that. Because it's their show, your show. There's no way this is going to be fair. Oh, I promise. You'll get to say, it'll be, you'll say how you feel about it. And we'll say, blah, blah, blah. There was no way it was fair and felt fair. And especially with all the behind the scenes meanness that was going on. And Tim kept saying, well, they think you're being mean to them. And I said, well, what have we done? What have any one of us done to be mean or show them anything but kindness? And he couldn't tell us, of course, but they just think you're being mean and blah, 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 because we were the opposing view. But what happened, and this is what I'm glad you said what you did, because it brought back the memory. I was getting a lot of messages from people about the show, and most of them were very kind, nice ones. Like, we saw that, Kristyn, you are not what they tried to make. You're not hateful. They were just kind messages and supportive. But there was one Christian lady, and the reason I say that is because she obviously kept saying things that were obviously to me that was her belief system. And how dare I bring those young people on talking about Colleen and Willie, and how dare I go on their show and be so mean and so hateful and so terrible, and how dare I treat her, Christine, at the bathroom, and how haunt her. And oh my gosh, I way back when I was more sensitive about everything, then it just broke my heart. And so I tried to explain, and she would of course not listen, and she wrote some more nasty things, and finally I just quit. I just ignored her. But that's what hurts, is when you're misrepresented like that, and
Yeah.
then people think you're a horrible person. And that's where some of that PTSD came in. Was
Yeah. Well,
I have not wanted nothing but for people to be free and happy, like Christine is now. I almost cry happy tears when I
right.
see her and listen to her make comments that are similar to my beliefs. Oh, I just want everybody to be happy, and I just want everyone to be free. And her excitement of leaving at the same year as I left, and
Yeah.
her excitement about life and finding herself, and this
Yeah.
joy that
Yeah.
she doesn't need a man. Oh my gosh, I just couldn't be more elated. And that's how
Right.
it's been all along, is wanting people to find this like Christine has. And now
And
I'm
that's,
hoping Janelle does.
yeah. I mean, I remember the very first time I spoke to you, and all you ever you always had so much compassion for the women in the family because of the way that this system works.
Yeah.
And all you ever said to them is, I want them to find the love that I was
Yeah.
able to experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's, I'm sorry that they portrayed you that way. That's definitely not who you are. So I think one of the things that a lot of people have asked is, with her leaving, have you had a chance to speak with her at all?
No, I wish that, I think that's up to her. There's this little tiny part of me, and I keep saying, oh, Kristyn, that's just your little ego bumping out, where I want her to reach out and apologize for saying and doing. But I don't know that she even realized that, because again, it could have just been producer ignited, those kinds of things. But I wish she'd reach out to me. I would love, love, love to talk with her and just hang out for a little bit, and talk about the commonalities that she finally figured all this out and got
Yeah.
away. It's so awesome.
Because yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, with polygamy, she was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you very well," which is an understatement given that
Yeah.
you and her mother were very close and you raised your kids together. And Kristyn was raised around your children.
So we had a really, really different family. Christine talks about how she loved polygamy and had these moms and how wonderful and exceptional her life was. And she's mentioned things that are completely dichotomous. She'll say, everything looked perfect and there was all this. And then, there's this, and then on the other side. So she, it was like she had rose colored glasses on for most of her life, but her mom and her dad made boo-goo amounts of money and they had all their needs met. They had clothing and food and trips and completely the opposite of my family. And my husband had two wives, like Rex did, two wives. But our older kids were the same age. She had girls and I had boys. And so it wasn't a whole lot of hanging out. But over the years, Annie and I would be close and then she'd shut me out. And then we'd be close and then she'd shut me out. And those are, her own personal things, which was always really hurtful, but whatever she was doing or going through. But the problem overall is that like Christine saw the picture that was put in front of her. She didn't see her mom's heartache. She didn't see mine. We put on that smiling, keep sweet face, be happy. Everything's great. And we did really well. Her mom and I did really well, making it look like we had these happy, wonderful plural families. And that's what I see almost everywhere. So,
So when she talks about her grandfather, which grandfather is she speaking about? Because Rulin was gone when she was only, I don't even know,
yeah,
she was very
right.
young.
Yes, he got killed. Let's see, the older kids were really little, so he died in 76.
She was only 5.
Yeah, she was really little, but they lived on the compound or complex or whatever you want to call it, the neighborhood. She lived there around his wives, her grandmother, she would call them probably and did. And they did the same thing. They all put on this beautiful, happy face, and everything was wonderful. And the grandkids could all come over and get kisses and hugs and goodies. And it was, none of the heartache, none of the sadness. And I won't go into any of that either. That's another
Yeah.
book I could write.
Yeah.
But to her, she just saw this utopia of everything being wonderful. It's no wonder she wanted to just jump right in and live this way and be happy ever after.
Because of her privilege within the group, right?
Privilege, and that it looked so beautiful to her.
Yeah.
Everybody was putting on that we're all best friends and we're all love each other to pieces and we're all perfect and we're all going to
Right.
heaven together.
Right. Did she grow up around your dad?
No,
No.
no.
So when he was,
So here's how she would have grown up around my dad would be that, of course, her grandmother, Annie's mom, was married to my dad, and they had their complex area where my dad and his wives and families were. And the same thing was going on there. Everybody's acting all wonderfully happy and righteous and everything's perfect and everybody's putting on the smiley faces. Annie's mom and I were really close. I loved her so much. I wrote that in my book. And I'm trying not to get emotional, but she and I hung out a lot. And we did things together. We did a lot together in the group. We taught school, private school. We did projects with kids all the time. We did art things. We did what we called our primary journal. And so I had a lot of time with her. She was more of a mom to me than my own mom was. And so we were really close, and I heard her heartaches and her sadness and her issues with my dad and her feeling abandoned and heartbroken. And But would she let Kristyn or any of the kids or anybody else know about that? Not even. She had to also keep that, uh, the what's the term? That you protect the principle of plural marriage at any cost. And
Yeah.
that meant you just shut down your own feelings, you shut down your own soul and your own heart and your own life to do that.
Right.
So,
And Anna, right?
yes.
Anna is actually like her story. I wish we had time to talk about her story because that's wild.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
ha- she was absorbed basically by your grandfather or your dad, sorry, as a wife. But I mean, yeah. So she's living in the compound more on the Rulin side after his passing, I'm assuming. Kristyn, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. Until she got married, she was up there. Yeah. So
Okay.
that was Murray, which you've mentioned before.
Okay.
And my dad's family and wives, when they lost the property in Murray, my dad, well, they didn't lose that, but when they got sold that property, then he bought property in Bluffdale. And that's where he built fourplexes for his wives.
So she grew up in Murray her whole life. And
Yes. Yeah.
and okay. So she obviously didn't go to wherever the prophet was at Owen at that point.
No, but we all went to church
Okay.
together. Yeah.
And did
Yeah.
her did Rex have a leadership position within the church, her dad?
Not that I'm aware of. If he did, it wasn't a big position that
Okay.
he might have been a quorum leader or, something like that. I don't think that he did that I'm aware of.
Okay. So that actually gets me to an interesting point because so you're talking about how these like obviously everyone's experience in polygamy is very different. I actually had this interesting conversation with a woman that is a survivor of the FLDS, and one of her biggest frustrations is that a lot of the stories that are out there about the FLDS are of the people that experience that higher level of living and were close to Warren and the prophet and all of that because they're the ones that have direct experiences. And she would say like what people don't know are those that are the ones of us that are like the workers that are like in poverty
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
our whole lives are dedicated to these people and stripped of everything.
Yes.
And so they can have their lives look wonderful. So there is sort of a interesting position because I think there has been a lot of acknowledgement of the family on the show of Kristyn's royalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How meaningful was her position in the church to Kody? Great.
And Rulin. And
Yeah, she's
Rulin. Oh,
ruling.
yeah.
Rulin is well, Rulin isn't certainly the first leader of the group. He's
No.
really in many ways who left a lasting imprint of who the group
Yes.
was
Right.
through his doctrine, and he's the one who sort of built the community in many ways.
Yeah.
So when people sort of look at the beginnings of who are the Allreds, it's Rulin.
So Kody would have definitely done that, Katie. I don't know because I don't know what was in his head, but for him to marry Rulin Allred's daughter, oh yeah, that's
Granddaughter, yeah.
great. Yes, granddaughter. Big bump up in ego, and he said he wasn't attracted to her. He said he, wasn't even in love with her, and he continued to do that. It had to have been of convenience for him to get his third wife. That third wife is so important
Because
to
that's
get
what,
into heaven,
yeah.
and because this is Rulin's granddaughter. How could I turn her away?
Right.
Oh yeah, bigger blessings for sure.
Does it get him a higher position within the church because of who she is, or the families are so big? So some of the grandchildren have never met him, don't know him. It's even with how like cousins don't know each other. So are all grandchildren? Is Rex the oldest son?
He is. No,
Oh,
wait. He's not the oldest
oh,
son. He's the oldest of his mom's
okay.
family.
So he's
But
but he's
he is way up there at the top,
he's a
though.
number one son of a wife.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
that's a pecking order for
Yeah.
patriarchy. So she's valuable in that respect as well.
So, what position Kody might have, what I saw, what I witnessed is that was variable on how much time and money you could contribute, which is what it is about, um, how much kissing up you do to the leaders, how much you can present to them and say, look at me, I'm going to lead this and I'm going to do that. And there were so many men vying for those positions. I mean, here we have Uncle Roland with, I don't even know how many, 40 some odd kids, 45, I think. And
Yeah.
so tons of boys who were older than Rex. And then there's all the other leaders and my dad who had tons of boys, and every one of them are wondering who gets to be the next leader and who's going to have this authority and who's going to, you know, and they all want, I shouldn't say they all, but a lot of them wanted that position.
Yeah.
And so it would or it wouldn't help, that's for sure.
Right.
In his marrying her. Yeah.
So that's a great stopping point for this portion of the interview. This was a 3-hour interview. And so we're going to have another chunk coming up next. And the next part, we're going to talk a little bit more about what choices a woman has when it comes to marrying a spouse. What is choice when you're in the world of polygamy? And so many more details about the doctrine, about the intricacies of leading polygamy, and a more in-depth analysis and discussion about her family. There's a lot to unpack. There's so much to uncover, but I hope you enjoyed this part of my interview with Kristyn Decker. I'm assuming we're going to have probably 2 or 3 total parts. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.